Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, good afternoon. I'll call this meeting of Committee of the Whole to order for February the 17th, 2022, and acknowledge the meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of Tla'amin Nation. Directors, you have the agenda in front of you. Can I please have a motion to adopt the agenda? Director Brander, Director Brabazon. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of the minutes of January the 13th. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands, could we have a motion to adopt the minutes, please? Director Brander, Director Leishman. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And that brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. We have 3 registered delegations. The first is Constable Rod Wiebe from the RCMP, or Staff Sergeant rather. I apologize for that. Please come up and join us at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Directors. I'm here to present the 2021 Regional District Policing Report. Bear with me. Okay, so for 2021, there's no changes to the provincial establishment. As you can see up there, the provincial business line has 2 corporals, 3 constables for frontline policing, 2 constables on Texada, and 1 constable for Indigenous policing. That is actually a provincial/federal business line. Normally, the provincial side of the house didn't really realize any vacancies throughout the years. However, 2021 changed. Currently, we are running a 50% vacancy rate on the provincial side. But you can see at the end of 2021, there was 3 vacancies. So that's similar to the vacancies on the municipal side. It all adds up to our resources are stretched extremely thin these days. The crime severity index, I guess because of COVID, it hasn't been updated by Stats Canada. I can tell you that the lows of 2019 weren't realized in 2020, so I suspect that 2021's index would go down for us. But there again, the report hasn't come out, and as soon as that happens, I'll update you guys. So year over year comparison, as I stated, 2019 is kind of our benchmark we're working off of. It happened to be a high crime year in the whole region. 2020 came along with COVID, and because of restrictions, regulations, things had quieted down quite a bit over 2019. So as you can see up here for 2021, lots of things stayed the same as 2020. A few items went up. Break and enter stayed the same. Theft under $5,000 increased over 2020. Assaults went down. Impaired driving went up. Impaired driving is a funny one. It's part of our priorities. So we focus on that in our proactive time. We've added a few drug recognition experts onto our staff. So we've enforced way more drug impaireds than we have in any recent history. So that's the reason why the impaired driving has went up.
That was my fault.
Okay. Yeah, so that's actually our proactive work is why that stat's gone up. Drug offenses went up a little bit. I can tell you though, the first half of the year we had great success. The last half we didn't because our plainclothes section was collapsed to reroute those members onto frontline policing because of our shortages. And again, last year I did let you guys know that we're concerned about the amount of mental health calls that we're receiving and attending. Well, in 2021, we attended 319, which is a considerable increase over the 255 the year before. We don't see that number changing. I maintain we are not the agency of choice that should be attending these calls, but at this point, we are the catch-all for other agencies that are also stretched for resources. Again, drug trafficking, you see in 2021, we had 28 investigations. First half of the year, we saw great success. A ton of search warrants executed. Seizures including cocaine, meth, fentanyl, LSD, GHB, cannabis were all realized throughout the region. We did happen to have one of our biggest seizures in the past 10 years during that time. So it was great work from our drug section. Calls for service overall for 2021 are up to 6,716 calls we attended throughout the region. That's a 10.5% increase over 2020, which again, hard to compare to 2020 because of the start of COVID, but comparing it to 2019, it's still up over that. And that was one of our busiest years on record. Going to break that down. Out of that 6,700 files, 76% were within the municipality, 24% were in the rural area, which is your guys' jurisdiction. So I can tell you overall, the regional district is up 3.8% over 2020. Texada is down 4%. The northern part of the regional district is up 16.6%. Savory is up 9.7%. And the southern part of the regional district is up 4.5%. Again, we continue to take part in the staffing assessment, which kind of tracks the times of officers. I'm not sure if it's a great stat to rely on, but it is what we have. And as you can see, as January 2021, our proactive rate was 18%. So that's the amount of time that our officers have to conduct things outside of responding to calls for service and following up on investigations. That can be doing proactive radar checks, going to schools, doing proactive presentations and stuff like that. So it's very limited time that we have to actually do that. Trends for 2021. So back in 2020, I predicted that we need to check or start watching check well-beings because they were increasing exponentially. As you can see by this chart, they've gone up 84% since 2019. Check well-being reports can consist of, I haven't heard from my neighbor for a while. Someone's walking down the street and they appear to be out of sorts. Everything like that is considered check well-being. Missing persons reports, they were trending high in 2020, but I can tell you they've reduced in 2021. So not as concerned there. I can tell you though that most of the labor intensive missing persons are the ones that happen in the RD. They will require helicopters, dogs, and lots of resources like that. Next trend is our criminal justice system. With recent changes, it's very offender focused and the community is secondary, which leaves the community kind of hanging out there. There's no real recourse and for the effects that the offender focused justice system has on the community. So just to give you an example, I'm going to give you a quick case study that I brought up. So we're going to talk about a 36-year-old male subject. He's had 156 police contacts since January 2019 and 7 convictions registered on his criminal record, all in 2020. So October 1st, we dealt with him for shoplifting and mischief. October 2nd, we dealt with him for break and enter. October 8th, we dealt with him for theft, possession of stolen property, and possession of drugs. October 9th, we dealt with him for a Trespass Act violation. October 13th, we dealt with him for a bail violation. October 13th, we dealt with him for theft. October 14th, we dealt with him for a bail violation. October 18th, we dealt with him for breach of probation. October 19th, we dealt with him for a break and enter, at which point we tried to hold him in custody. Crown Counsel ordered that he be released. October 23rd, we dealt with him for possession of stolen property and shoplifting twice in that day. October 25th, we dealt with him for possession of drugs. October 30th, we dealt with him for break and enter and a bail violation. We held him in custody, and at this point, the courts held him in custody. So why is that important? So from January to August, property crime was down 15% in the region. January to September, property crime was down 9% in the region. January to October, property crime was now up 3%. January to December, property crime was up 9.84%. So it wasn't just this gentleman. There was two others that have a very similar story, but arguably were responsible for an 18% increase in property crime in the region. A lot of this is court focused. We catch them, we can't hold them, we have to release them. It's the court's position that bail always has to be an option, and people should be released with the most least restrictive conditions there are. So that's kind of some of our challenges, and especially it was evident in a very short span of time, October in 2021. So our priorities last year were road safety, crime reduction, youth, domestic violence, employee wellness, working with our partner nation, and enhanced visibility in the provincial area. I can tell you that best laid plans, the enhanced visibility in the provincial area was not up to what I'd like to have seen it. But with our staffing shortages, there was no way to be very proactive, not only in Powell River, but also in the provincial areas. So for 22-23, I certainly like input from anyone on the board or any of the public that's listening. You can email me at that address or phone me at the detachment. I'd be more than happy to discuss anything that you would like to see us focus on, pending some type of staffing increase or insurgents or something, or filling some of our empty spots. Other than that, that's all I have. I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant. Questions of committee members. Director Brabazon.
Thank you, staff. I got several questions. One of them, you're going to say thanks. We're back there at the same time, same place, but we'll get there in a moment. Firearms. What sort of firearms are you picking up on these raids? Is it all handguns or?
Actually, very few handguns occasionally, but it's mostly long guns. That's the most popular type of firearm, especially in
regular hunting
rural areas of Canada. Regular 22s, shotguns. Okay.
Missing person files. Are any of them still open?
We have several. Several are historical. Lots of people who have gone missing and related to the ocean. Those will stay open forever until.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. We do currently have an outstanding missing person that we are actively investigating and bringing outside help to perhaps see if we can't come to.
And the one I asked this last year, and I'll ask it again: domestic violence. Given the pandemic, is there anything remarkable there? There
is not in our region.
Okay. And finally, my favorite subject with you, Savory Island.
Yes.
What's going to happen this summer?
Again, we will propose a seasonal policing plan. It's not even financial. It is all body oriented. And if we have the bodies and we can free them up, there is a wealth of overtime offered to try and increase the police presence on Savory. We don't have the bodies. Our first priority is to fill our watches, the frontline policing, and by the time they're done filling those positions, come to their days off, the officers do not want to come in and work. It's as simple as that. We're that short. I'm hoping there's some relief on the horizon, but like I say, best I can. I can tell you that I've been talking with the Ministry of Transportation closely, and we're hoping to have some type of event happen over there in regards to the vehicle issue.
I'm aware of that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Brabazon. Other questions? Dr. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Staff Sergeant Wiebe. I have two questions. I won't ask you about the Skeety Island since your detachment doesn't serve us. We're served out of the Parksville office. But one is, and I'm sorry to hear about the vacancies. I think that seems a chronic issue, and it just is through society. But I mean, that's a recipe for added pressure on all the employees that are there, and that's just not great, because then if someone else leaves, then you're down even further. So the two questions: one is the mental health items incidents went up. Is that when those calls go out, are they, is that because people have been sort of isolated and so on? Is that related to the restrictions that have been public health restrictions, or is that just a trend of maybe more involvement with people with ability to identify and address mental health involvement in incidents?
Actually, I would attribute COVID to more of the check well-being complaints where people can't get a hold of friends and family for whatever reason. So I think that has added a lot to the increase of those calls. Not a lot of mental health that I've seen is attributed to actual COVID. I would say it's more addiction issues that are the majority of our mental health complaints.
Okay, great. The other emergency, which is still ongoing, of course, we still have a provincial emergency for that, which is tragic. The other question, and maybe it's even a suggestion for where you asked where we would like maybe some addressing effort, and I know, of course, subject to staff, because that's, you can't do anything more than hold the work you are doing. But when I was in, I used to live in the Highlands outside Victoria, and the RCMP there was a committee involved with the RCMP policing committee. I was on a few of the meetings, but there was a kind of a neighborhood justice program that was set up to help especially youth offenders and not violent crimes, but repeat offenders, youth offenders, helping get the youth, it's more restorative, I guess. Restorative justice is another term for it, and really, rather than going through the court system and hearing your description of repeat offenders and the effect they have on both your department but also overall crime levels is astounding. But being able to bring people in, especially young people who are maybe new to some of those activities, get them to be in groups where they're talking with the community that they're affecting, maybe they understand, and then maybe have the whatever punishment is restorative, so related to the crime, and maybe the people learn empathy with those that are being harmed. So has there been any consideration of those kinds of options?
There has actually. We have a very active restorative justice program here. It goes through LIP, is the overarching organization that runs it. So okay. It started out as the Texas Island Restorative Justice Committee, and it's kind of morphed into regional, and including Clonmel.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from directors? Director Brando.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one. I know you have all these problems with staffing. I was wondering if there's any, like you say, light on the horizon. Like, are any of the vacancies due to, say, maternity leave or injuries that you can expect them to be coming back, or is it all just open-ended at this point?
There's a few I don't expect to come back for a while, and our processes are slow. It takes a while because as you can imagine, we have to transfer someone in, which is an extreme cost to the policing budget. And if that person ends up coming back and it's filled, then we have to transfer somebody out. So it's called soft vacancies when it's not actually someone who's been transferred to leaving. If it's someone's off for injury or something, we don't normally fill that.
Right, but are some of the vacancies right now soft vacancies?
Most are soft.
Okay.
Well, hard vacancies, which we're hoping, because of COVID, it did shut down Regina for a while, our training academy. So we're still trying to recover from not training any members for that period of time. It's back up and running, but the cadets coming out is quite slow right now.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions from directors? Seeing no hands, I'll ask a quick Texada question. Will the youth nights be starting up again?
I certainly hope so, and that was all tied to COVID. So with things relaxing, I'm holding out great hope for youth night on Texada. I know it's the members loved it, and I think the community did too. So
yeah, I think it would be great to get that started again. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Seeing no hands, I want to thank you very much for your presentation and lots of food for thought here. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, directors.
Thank you. Okay, our second delegation is Mel Waldron from Brew Bay Improvement District. And we have your note here, read the Wolfson Creek Bridge. Come on up.
Thank you for listening to me today.
Okay, you're welcome. You have 10 minutes. So go ahead.
I'd like to talk about the Lang Creek Bridge south of town. There was a fatality accident. They're not the first one in the last several years. We've had 2 or 3 of them. And it's a very narrow bridge with no walkways. Now it's got even narrower because of the new guardrails they put in. And it's right in a big tourist area, school crossing, no bicycle paths, no walkways. And I would wonder or hope that maybe the regional board can look at building a path for bicycles and pedestrians like they did at Myrtle Creek Bridge. And just to try to alleviate some of the dangers of that area down there. Today there was a big fire. They come into our place to fill up their water, cut out on the road. I mean, it was chaos down there. And if anybody's riding a bike or walking, I don't know if any of you have even gone down there and walked across that bridge, but you take your life in your hands. And I know you've done some of these bridges before with the highways department, you've done with the local forestry, the money that comes into that. If you could just have a look to see if it's possible to do something like that. And I think it would be an asset to the community and help with the dangerous crossing. And that's pretty well it in the nutshell. So if anybody takes a drive out there and has a look, I think you've been out there, Clay, and look.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, it's been a bad bridge for years. It's getting worse. And I tried to get some stats from the Department of Highways to the accident rates there and deaths. They didn't come through with it on time. So, but I know it's substantial, and there will be more. And like I say, I'm hoping the regional board can direct me or direct somebody to have a look at it and see if we could build a walkway and a bridge across separate to what's there, or have some engineering study done to look at the safety side of it. And that's it in a nutshell. If anybody's got a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. Director Brandon.
Thanks. It's not really much of a question, more of a comment. I say, yeah, I empathize with you. My kids go to Kelly Creek. My wife's a teacher there, and now they used to walk the kids down, I think, twice a year to view the salmon, but now they actually bring school buses because it's so dangerous to cross the bridge. I just wanted to mention we have started up at our instigation the quarterly meetings with Ministry of Transportation again. We're having one, I believe it's April 12th, and this has been added to the agenda.
That'd be great. How could I follow through with that? Just contact you, or
about the meeting, or
well, just to what's happening, if anybody's doing anything about it. Like, it's all great to talk about. If you don't follow up, it ain't much work to.
Right. We can speak after that, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'd appreciate it, and I know there's funding and all sorts of things going on, but I just, somebody was killed there the other day, and I was involved with it, and next time it's going to be a kid or a bicyclist or something like that. So, and I know it's in a highways department problem, but I think the regional board could look at putting a side bridge over there. It would be a great safety thing, and I think it'd be great for the tourists and the fish hatchery. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much. And your issue will be followed up at the meeting that Director Brander was referring to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Our third delegation is Charles Latimer. And is Charles attending virtually?
Yes, Chair.
Hi.
There he is.
All right. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And you're talking about your proposal for the Old Lund Fire Hall. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thanks for having me.
10 minutes.
Kristen?
Go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having me. So yes, my name is Charles Latimer. I'm the treasurer of the Lund Community Society. The Lund Community Society's been leasing the old school in Lund. Their current lease is since 2017. Now with the new building of the fire hall, there's opportunity for us to house some of our programs. And so that's what the proposal is. I wanted to show up here just to be present and be available for any questions. I'm really happy to see that the draft proposal is for a building assessment and then for staff to work with us. So very excited about that. But just wanted to be available for any questions that might be outstanding. And I just also wanted to reiterate that we've gone through quite a bit of community consultation about what we would have in that building. And there's a lot of excited parents for a skate ramp there. There's an existing clothing exchange program that exists, but that needs space, and as well as Bike Lund's community bike shop that would be available for community residents. And that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Charles. And I want to commend your the proposal that you put forward. It's really detailed and lots of information in it, which will certainly help us in understanding what you're trying to do. So, questions of directors? Nothing for that. Okay, Director Paul.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. As I concur with the chair, the vision you have is quite beautiful, and I think the approach of consulting and so on, and trying to come up with something for the community is great. So my question is, and I fully support this, but I mean, it's not a concern so much, it's just a question. The covered ramp seems great. I mean, I think having a place for young people to go on skateboards on the ramp is fantastic, but it does require volunteers to open and close, as I understand, and you mentioned it talks about volunteer attendance. Is that feasible? Is that going to be a tough job? Like, you have a lot of people lined up? Because that seems to be, they're because having it inside, and especially with the other services that will be there, that someone will have to be there. You can't just give a key, so there will have to be an adult, I guess, at least one, to do this. So maybe explain.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know if
that's a really good question, and one that we've really tried to address and try to talk through. So we've taken some examples of other shared spaces that people have collaborated with, and we decided that the easiest way to move forward would be to have these volunteer attendants. Those could be folks that are either attending the clothing exchange stuff, attending to that, parents that are looking after their kids, or folks that are volunteering with the community bike shop. Now what would happen, and what we were suggesting, is that we have a consistent kind of training of what that entails in terms of opening the space and closing it, and then having regular shifts that people can volunteer. Now, having put feelers out, seeing if people were interested in this, we already have, I think, about 15 folks that are interested in helping. So that will, once we move forward more, we'll make that more concrete and start developing that. But we'll do that with staff of the regional district as well, to make sure that any concerns on that side are addressed.
I think that's great. I mean, I just think, having it inside, in the rainy winters, that's a great thing on the weekends. But I'm imagining, if I was a young person wanting to use it, rainy winters, evenings, weekends, Sundays. So that's sort of brings up the question of the volunteer. I think for the young people, it's fantastic. And I think it's really, really thoughtful. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Paul. Other questions from committee members? Seeing no hands. I have a quick question, I guess, about insurance and how, what information you've been able to obtain about insurance for the skate park, if that's going to be an issue.
Yeah, that's the element that we are most, I wouldn't say concerned, but most kind of proactive on. And we've already reached out to our insurance provider for the Lund Community Society. We have insurance for our board members, and as well for the building itself. I'm supposed to give them another call tomorrow. They've actually moved us to their corporate wing because the usage would be more in line with that. So I don't have numbers yet, but as soon as we have that, I'll share that with the staff of the regional district. And I know that that's one of the big concerns for regional district, is making sure that insurance is in place for all structures. I know that that's the case also for the gazebo and other places like that. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I know insurance came up a while ago when the Texada Recreation Commission was looking at a skate park, and that was certainly one of the issues that surfaced during that discussion. So again, thank you. Seeing no further hands, we appreciate your presentation, and your proposal will be considered today under correspondence. So
great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. So are there any unregistered delegations that wish to speak?
Chair, no one has indicated so.
Okay, thank you. So we are now on to item 6, which is correspondence. And of course, the first one being from Mr. Latimer, and you see a recommendation before you. Director Brabazon.
Thank you, Chair. I will move a slightly modified recommendation. And in the second paragraph, if you replace the word Lund with Northside, I'll explain it later.
Right, and you are moving this recommendation. And is there a seconder for this recommendation? Director Brander, thank you. So did you want to speak to it, Director?
Yes, I want to explain why. It is the Northside Recreation Service that runs and funds the community hall up there. So the north side, the people of the Northside Recreation Service area should be the ones who are consulted.
Okay. And the recommendation that staff be directed to engage with the Northside community on the future of the Lund Fire Hall. Okay, all right. Thank you, Director Dowd.
Interesting proposal. Looks like a lot of people have worked hard to create it. I know there's a demand for those kind of services. I just want to make sure I understand exactly the chain of ownership and chain of use here. And I understand that the old Lund Fire Hall now actually belongs to the Northside Recreation Service. It's leased or right now the Northside Community Recreation Center leases the community center and would like to also lease the old fire hall and extend the existing lease. Am I right about that chain of ownership there?
Through the chair, I think you are pretty accurate. The society up there is just, to my knowledge, asking to put this other building into.
Okay. And the only concern I have from reading the report is I think it mentioned the liability insurance is $2 million. I think that's a little bit light. I have more than that on my own home, and I don't invite other children to come and skateboard on my property. So I'd be really careful about that $2 million liability limit, particularly with the use that the building might be put to.
Thank you. Good advice. Other questions from directors, comments? Seeing no hands up, you have the recommendation before you, so all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. We're on to item 6.2, correspondence from Tara Faganello. I have a quick question, but first, is there a motion? Someone like to move a motion regarding this item of correspondence?
I'll move receipt.
Receipt has been moved. Thank you, Director Paul, seconded by Director Brander. Thank you. A quick question to our CAO. Can improvement districts apply for this funding?
You're talking about the environment quality program?
I'm talking about the, yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
I don't believe that they can, through the chair, I don't believe that they can apply directly.
Okay. Okay, so again, that would be one of those things that would go through the regional district. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no hands, so on the motion to receive, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 6.3, item of correspondence from Peter Skipper. What is your pleasure with this?
Receipt.
Receipt has been moved. Thank you, Director Brander, seconded by. Would someone like to second it? Thank you, Director Brabazon. Okay, I support receiving the letter and not doing anything else at this point, but it's just a flag to be waved for directors that we'll be hearing a lot more about improvement districts and water systems down the road. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Item 6.4 from Leslie Beard, Village of Cumberland, regarding Bill C-216. What is your pleasure? Director Paul.
Thank you. I just put in the chat for the corporate officer a motion to that the committee recommend the board request the chair to write a letter in support of Bill C-216 to Prime Minister Trudeau and to the Minister of Health and Addictions, Carolyn Bennett.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Director Paul.
I'll just speak briefly. This was put forward. This private member's bill was put forward by our MP, the Skeety MP, Gord Johns, who's very active. And it's, you know, when you read the letter from Cumberland, and I was aware of this bill prior because Gord Johns told me about it, and a member of the public contacted me about it. So it's really, I think, very empathetic what he's trying to achieve, and it's about improving the health and well-being of people who need it rather than going down the road of punishment. And so I think it's really appropriate. It's well thought out, and I hope that we support it.
Thank you very much, Director Paul. Discussion on this recommendation. Looking for hands. Seeing none then. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're now on to 6.5 from Lisa Helps. City of Victoria, legal challenge with the government of Quebec. What is your pleasure with this item?
Move receipt.
Receipt has been moved, Director Gisborne, thank you. Seconded by Director Brander, thank you. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. We're now on to report 7.1, the fourth quarter strategic plan progress report. And you have the recommendation before you, which is to receive this report. Is there a mover for this recommendation? Director Brabazon, seconded by Director Brander. Thank you. Discussion. Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. That's just a couple questions, and I am just seeing if some of the staff are there, but I'll ask them to the Chair. So on page 59, there's the item for flood mapping, and I was just wanting to ask if Mr. Toms, if he's on the call through the chair, if he might give an update on that. It says the data will be ready in spring, and the reason I'm asking about it is because a related issue came up on the last local trust committee meeting last week, and so I spoke to them and said that that when we have it, they'll be really appreciative to receive the information. So I was just curious if there was any information on timing of that.
Mr. Toms.
Yeah, good afternoon. Through the chair, I can answer that. The field work was completed last month, so the modeling is happening currently. We do anticipate having the mapping back to the regional district this spring, and then it'll go with the planning department's rollout, public engagement, and sharing it in that regard.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Paul. I'm not seeing any hands, but I have a quick question on page 6 regarding something that's been on there for quite a while, and it's the Texada drainage report. We were waiting for funding in partnership with MOTI. Has anything happened, or is anything happening, or can we put a piece of dynamite under somebody's desk to try and move this along? Ms. Rodden?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have reached out to Modi on numerous occasions to inquire about the status of funding for this project, and it just continues to be not part of their annual budget. So I think that if the board wants this project to happen, it would probably be a good idea for some advocacy from the board to Modi. Maybe at the quarterly meetings might help.
That's a good idea. Okay. Would it be possible for you to send a memo just updating us with the status of that project, and then we'll have something to follow up with?
Yes, I can send a director's notification.
Yeah, that would be great. That'd be perfect. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no hands. Oh, Director Paul, there you are. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I have one other question, and it's also through the chair for Mr. Toms, if no one else wants to ask things about this. But it's on page 98. There's an item, the item on the Regional Fire Services Administrative Assistant, and the progress is that the assistant began in June, has been on a learning curve, and that the position has been helping to support the chief. So I guess the question for Mr. Toms, if he's able to answer, if he has any more information on it, really is, have the fire chiefs been taking advantage of this additional support they have, and has that really has it been helping them achieve better objectives in their departments?
Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in a word, yes. We're still on a learning curve, but we are seeing uptake, whether it's the records management, the administration, and especially the purchasing. All of that administrative side is certainly helping, and we're seeing that with our Liskedy Fire Chief as well as the others. But there's still learning ongoing too.
Right, I'm sure it's a bit of a learning on both sides of what can be done and how that can be done. And hopefully, it's taking some of the pressure off your shoulders as well.
The intent, absolutely, so that our fire chiefs can focus on the operation side, the boots on the ground, fire operations and training, and that, and it is coming along.
That's great. Thank you. That's all my questions for now.
Thank you, Director Paul. Okay, last time, are there any other questions or comments about this report? Seeing no hands, all in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. 7.2 is the Association AVICC conference attendance.
I'd like to move an alternate recommendation.
An alternate recommendation. Yes, Director Gisborne.
I've just posted it in the chat. I move that the committee recommend the board direct staff to register Directors Brabazon, Gisborne, Brander, McCormick, Fall, and the Chief Administrative Officer for the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Conference to be held in Victoria, BC from April 1st to April 3rd, 2022, and that all reasonable expenses be paid.
Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Director Paul. Okay. Go ahead, Director Gisborne. Did you want to speak to it?
Sure. I just recall several years ago, we used to include which directors were attending in the motion. And I think it was maybe last year, we went to interested directors. And I get questions asked from the public as well, who's going, who's not going. And I figured with this motion, it then makes it clear to the public, so I don't have to answer those kind of questions. Thank you, Chair.
Comments on this recommendation? CAO?
Through the chair, question to Director Gisborne. Does this then mandate those named to attend?
My understanding is this signs them up. I don't believe that they are then required to attend, but they will then be registered. If a director does not wish to attend, then they can speak up now and have their name removed through an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Director Brander?
Thanks, Chair. I don't see the need to change to move anything from other than the recommended motion that we have in front of us. I think it's presumptuous to sign everybody up if they haven't been asked already. And in the past, the staff has done well sending out an email. If we all respond to it, they'll know and they'll sign us up as needed.
Thank you. Director Brabazon.
Thank you. This does remind me of negative billing, in that if this were to carry, then I have to actually go and say, no, I don't want it. And what we really want is for me to go and say, yes, I do want it. And for the other directors to say, yes, they do want it. So I prefer the original.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Everyone who has wanted to speak the first time has done so. Okay, Director Gisborne.
Oh, thank you, Chair. My understanding with this motion is that if those who want to attend, they can attend. We're all saying we want to. We've passed resolutions asking for advocacy at AVICC level. This is just, adding our names to the delegation that we'll be sending down to say, look, we're going to go, we're going to advocate, and I see that as part of what we do. And my understanding was that this was a past practice several years ago, and I'm just advocating that I preferred that past practice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, we will vote. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? The motion is defeated. So we will carry on. Is there a recommendation that someone else would like to move?
I'll move the recommendation. Oh, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Directors Fall and Brander seconding the recommendation in the report. Discussion. Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Yes. All right, 7.3, volunteers working in QRD parks, properties, and trails.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Director Gisborne, seconded by Director Brander. Thank you. Discussion, Director Gisborne.
Thank you. I just want to say this is fantastic. This is great news. I enthusiastically support the volunteers in parks. I would like to commend staff for what they have brought before this assembly, the Parks, Properties and Trails Volunteer Program Framework, the Volunteer Handbook, the Parks, Properties and Trails Volunteer Agreement, I believe will serve as a valuable asset to our organization. I really think staff kind of went above and beyond. I would also like to clearly state that while I enthusiastically support volunteers in parks, there has been some current concern brought up in this report, and I believe that we as a board leading the organization must ensure our due diligence to ensure that the regional districts' unionized employees do not feel threatened by such a program, that this program is not to replace any of our unionized workers, that the effort of volunteers is supportive, but does not replace any of our workers or current staff. I believe we can work together for the betterment of our community using this program. To me, that's the definition of qathet. I will gladly support this resolution and hope the rest of the assembly does as well. And I also see Mr. Devereaux has his camera on, and I believe he might have some comments, and I would love to hear it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Mr. Devereaux, did you have a comment?
Just one, Chair, and that is that the board can have a second look at this again. Once we go past the union, we will come back to the board for final approval.
Thank you. And I too want to say thank you very much for bringing this forward. I've been approached so many times with people who want to clear a trail or do something that will, help make either the park easier or another regional facility more accessible. And it's nice to be able to have a program now that we can refer those people to. So I really do appreciate this coming forward. So other comments, Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. First, I concur with the positive comments. I want to thank staff, Mr. Devereaux. Really, this was a joy to read, and I think it was really nice to see the work put in and the thought put in, and the balance between engaging volunteers and allowing volunteers for residents to participate and do things with, our respect for union work and also our requirements to provide services in a safe way, and that when we have volunteers, they're workers in some ways and so on. So it's not an easy path, as we've talked in the past, and I really think this is great, and I look forward to hopefully getting positive feedback from the union. The one question I have is, the volunteer agreement looks good, and this is it would it be possible? Sometimes it's a group who wants to do the volunteer work. Would this require every individual of that group to fill out this agreement, or is the idea that would it be allowing a group to be an umbrella and say our society applies and they fill out the application? That's just a question. I don't know what the best way is, but
Mr. Devereaux, we'll try and get an answer for you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the program is set up specifically mainly for groups, and the anticipation is that a group would sign up all their members or volunteers in a blanket application and come to the regional district.
Okay, that's fantastic, because there's, of course, we don't want to have barriers to this, and that's a really nice balance point. So really I look forward to hearing back the next steps of this.
Thank you. Although further to that last question, sometimes you put out a call for a work party and people just show up. Is there a requirement that they would have to sign the form on the day of that work and then go ahead to be part of it? Mr. Devereaux?
Yes, Chair. I think that's the obligations. Everyone would have to sign up. We don't want people acting like workers and operating on our grounds without being signed up prior.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Seeing no hands, all in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So we're now on to 7.4 Myrtle Pond Water Service Drinking Water Conservation Plan. You have the recommendation before you. Is there a mover for this recommendation? Director Rabazon. Thank you. Seconded by Director Gisborne. Discussion? Director Dowd and then Director Gisborne.
Just a couple of detailed questions. One is the heading is the Myrtle Pond Water Service Drinking Water Conservation Plan. The plan that's attached is the Regional District Water Conservation Plan. Small detail perhaps, but when I look at the first overview, it talks about it applying to everything within the regional district's jurisdiction, and there's a map that includes Texada Island, the entire Texada Island, for example, and the city of Powell River. And part one of the program talks about how it's been developed in consultation with all of the stakeholders. And I just wondered if the real title that we're approving today is the Myrtle Pond Water Service Conservation Plan or the Regional District Conservation Plan. And if it's the Regional District Conservation Plan, I'd like to know about the details of the involvement of the city of Powell River in creating this.
Good questions. CEO.
I'll defer to Patrick Devereaux.
Okay, Mr. Devereaux.
Thank you, Chair. It is a regional water conservation plan, but it's specific for the Myrtle Pond water system. So the engineers that put it together made it so that it could be used by any other water system within the regional district, so that we could share this with some of our smaller water systems and improvement districts, that they could use the same plan and carry forward with their water conservation through the warm summer months as well. There is language in there that speaks to that it is only for a Myrtle Pond, but that it can be used by other water systems. I hope that clarifies.
Are you satisfied with the answer, Director?
It's an answer. I've read it, and I'm not entirely clear myself that it's not intended to apply to other jurisdictions. It says it applies to other jurisdictions in the policy itself. And the other half of my question is, what consultation happened between the other stakeholders? There's the different water districts, the different water systems, and the city of Powell River.
Mr. Devereaux?
My understanding is that it is for the Myrtle Pond system only, and members, jurisdictions with other systems may use this. There's no governing of the city's water system or any other water system. It is for the Myrtle Pond system.
Okay, thank you.
So,
okay, but there's other speakers, so.
That's the answer. I'd like to do something to deal with that answer. And I'd like to move an amendment to the Regional District Water Service Drinking Water Conservation Plan to change the title to the Myrtle Pond Water Service Drinking Water Conservation Plan.
Cool. The motion itself says approve the Myrtle Pond Water Service conservation plan. Corporate officer.
So we're not amending this motion. We would like to amend the document.
The motion is to amend the document that's attached. So that
Yes.
the document that's attached actually says that it is the Myrtle Pond Water Service Drinking Water Conservation Plan.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, which is to approve the plan. So are you proposing an amendment then to that motion, corporate officer?
I would suggest that we should table the motion and that motion would be a main motion. Should be either dealt with first or afterwards.
Okay, well, the one that's on the table is the one that's in the agenda. So do we need to deal with that first or do we table that?
Thank you, Chair. It would be appropriate to table it and then deal with the motion to change the title of the document.
Okay, so a motion to table that motion would be in order. Is that correct?
Yep, I'm making that motion.
All right. Is there a second on the motion to table? Director Gisborne, thank you. All right, on the motion to table. Now, Director Gisborne, you had your hand up before. I haven't forgotten you.
No, I can wait.
Okay, all right. This is on the motion to table the first motion. All right, I'm seeing no hands there. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. The motion is tabled. So could you restate your motion, please, Director Dowd?
Motion is to change the document, the name of the document that's attached from the Qathet Regional District Water Service Drinking Water Conservation Plan to the Myrtle Pond Water Service Drinking Water Conservation Plan.
Is there a second? Okay, Director Gisborne, thank you. Discussion.
I think it's a reasonable idea and that's what it's intended to be. So I'd like that to be the title of the document.
Thank you. And it does make sense for clarity's sake to do it that way. Is there further discussion? Director Leishman.
So for clarification, we're just adding Myrtle Pond to the document that it currently is just called Drinking Water Conservation Plan.
Well, it has Qathet Regional District at the
top.
top.
It has Qathet Regional District as the logo at the top of the document, which is who created the document essentially. So it's just called Drinking Water Conservation Plan, February 2022. So I think we're just adding Myrtle Pond to that. Is that correct? Is that even appropriate? That's my question.
We'll get that answered. Thank you, Director Leishman. Corporate officer.
It's appropriate. We won't take off Qathet Regional District, but we're adding
Myrtle Pond to the Drinking Water Conservation. Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Other questions or comments? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And that is to change the name. Okay, so we are now on to 7. Oh, are we on to the tabled recommendation?
If we could get a motion to take the tabled motion back onto the table. So
Director Leishman, Director Gisborne, thank you. Discussion?
We're just taking it.
Yep. Now we're voting on the Myrtle Pond Drinking Water Conservation, which is what it says actually on the agenda. Any discussion? Director Gisborne?
Okay, now I can discuss the plan.
Yep.
Okay, it got a little confusing there.
All right. Okay.
My first question is, taking a look at the staff report, my understanding is that there's a grant application deadline and that we need to have a water conservation plan in place in order to get the grant. Is that correct?
CAO?
I'll defer to Patrick Devereaux.
Mr. Devereaux.
Yes, through the chair, that is correct.
Follow up?
Yeah, I'll have a follow up. Upon hearing that, I do have some concerns with the plan. However, since we do want the grant, I will vote in favor of the motion, but I would like to express my concerns and then I have some ideas on maybe how we can maybe improve on it in the future. I like the intention, just a little hung up on the implementation. Reading through the plan, I see a lot of like primary focus on the external water use outside of the structure. For example, the residential lawns, automatic watering from 5 to 7 a.m., manual watering from 6 to 9 a.m. As I live on a farm, I've experimented over the years with different watering techniques and different watering times. I found that after sunset and before sunrise is ideal. Early morning watering can leave water droplets on leaves, and the reflection and refraction on light can act as a magnifying glass and burn the leaves on larger plant leaves when the sun comes up. And that's really noticeable on plants like rhubarb. The higher the latitude where we are on the planet, the earlier the sun rises in the summer months. Technically, in our region, around the summer solstice in June, we don't get technical night. We get a form of astronomical twilight. The sun rises above the horizon before 6 a.m. And in our summers, thankfully, the mountains to the east give us a bit of reprieve, and the properties with large trees gets the shade benefits for longer. What I'm getting at is that instead of telling people when they can water, maybe we can tell people when they shouldn't water, daylight hours. I found that watering in the evening after the sun goes down has provided a better benefit without having to use as much water consumption. The other aspect is I believe we should capitalize on our water metering capabilities. Water can be conserved or wasted inside the structure. A toilet with a faulty flush valve can waste thousands of gallons of water a month. Our Myrtle Pond water bylaw sets a minimum water usage that increases in the summer months. If a property owner is being water conscious and isn't consuming a lot of water inside the structure, then I would be comfortable with them using, say, more water externally. Having the plan is important and necessary for the grant, but I think moving forward, like this plan makes sense based on common practices throughout North America, but I believe we live in an uncommon area and times are changing. I think there are some very passionate, intelligent, innovative, and experienced members of this community that could bring some valuable ideas to the table in regards to the conservation of drinking water. So I'm wondering if maybe in the future we should establish a drinking water conservation subcommittee where we can get people from around the community to come up with a truly regional water conservation plan. And we can use this document before us as a starting point. But I don't think at this time it would be proper to make the motion to form such a committee. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to express those concerns. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Are there other comments or questions from committee members? Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, I have a question through the Chair, probably for Mr. Devereaux. I'm really happy to see discussions and documents on water conservation. I think we have a plan. I understand one of the main reasons is we need it for the grant application. I fully understand that. But I guess the question would be, the rubber hits the road in the monitoring and enforcement section, and I was reading section 3.7 of the report of the plan and trying to just wrap my mind around how this could be ensured to be followed. And I guess the question is, do you have any, I'd just like to hear your comments on our ability to monitor and enforce and improve adherence to the plan through education and other means.
Thank you. Mr. Devereaux?
Yes, through the Chair, if I may. The Myrtle Pond community, very tight-knit as such. I mean, everyone knows their neighbors, and we rely on a little bit of neighborhood enforcement as such, so that people will let their neighbor know that they're not supposed to be watering their lawn at noon on the day that they're not supposed to be watering their lawn. For the most part, we get full cooperation when we put these restrictions, because the restrictions in phase one, and if we've only ever been in phase one in Myrtle Pond, we're put in every summer for the most part. and our water caretaker goes around, he checks, and you know, once in a while we've had a sprinkler left on when someone was trying to put a lawn in, or somebody left one on and they went to work and forgot about it, and we've left notes for them, and they've complied immediately. It's not really a problem for us. If it got to a problem, we'd have to find other ways around that. But the bylaws give us a few options for turning off people's water, if that had to be it. But I do not anticipate we'd have to go there at all.
That's great. Thank you. And I think putting in the stage 1 automatically is a very good way to do that. People just get used to, you know, after July the 1st, they do something, and it doesn't matter whether it's been wet or dry. That's how you behave in the summer. Thanks. So that helps me a lot.
Thank you, Director Paul. And just for everyone's information, these kinds of restrictions take place on Texada as well by the Improvement District. So restrictions on watering is something that we come to expect every summer for residents of Improvement District areas. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, you have the recommendation before you. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. We are now on to 7.5, 2022 elections, appointments of officers and local public bodies. And there are two different.
Yep.
Director Gisborne, you're moving the first recommendation?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Director Leishman, you're seconding. Thank you. Discussion on the first recommendation. Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. And the second recommendation.
I'll move the second recommendation. Yep.
Seconded by Director Leishman. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right, under new business, I'm bringing forward the motion about electric vehicle charging stations. And if it is moved and seconded, I would like to speak to it. So Director Brabazon, you're moving the recommendation. Thank you. Seconded, Director Brander. All right. I was approached by a constituent about having electric vehicle charging stations on Texada, and I think it is a great idea that's long overdue. Residents who want to have that option, there's very little in the way of public transportation on Texada, so people who want to have a greener footprint, this is a great option for them. Trouble is, unless you put in your own vehicle charging station, which one person has done, there's no way to charge your vehicle. So I know a number of people are going to the hybrid models, but I think it's great to attract visitors who arrive in electric vehicles, to encourage visitors who have electric vehicles to come to the rural areas. And I think that the time is right to be doing this. So discussion further, Director Brander.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've been driving an electric vehicle for the past 4 or 5 years. So whenever I take it out of town, I'm always looking for charge points because you really don't want to get stuck on the side of the road. So I think it's a valuable thing to have. I also want to add that I did speak to a contact at the school board. If you've noticed, a lot of the schools around Powell River have charge stations now. And of course, pending on approval by the school board and getting the funding, there are plans for putting in one at the Texada school that will be, first and foremost be utilized by staff, but staff doesn't always use it and staff isn't always there. So it will be open to public as far as I know. So there are some plans in the works, but that doesn't mean that they should preclude the QRD investigating options as well.
That's right. Thank you. And the school board whatever they would do would be in addition to what we're proposing here. Director Gisborne.
Thank you. I have a question about how these charging stations work. If a individual from the public uses one of these charging stations, do they have to pay for the electricity that they use, or like maybe one of the city councilors can explain how it happens in the city?
Sure, Director Leishman.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, when we first put in the charging stations, the level 2 charging stations in the city, at different locations, We actually had them be free. So they were on the municipality's, a municipality hydro account. So the municipality was paying for the charging, which was I believe the 1 year that they were fully installed, it was about $1,500 for the year. So it's not a huge expense. And it was initially we wanted to provide that charging infrastructure as an incentive for people to come here with electric vehicles or to, purchase them. We just felt after a couple of years that some people were sort of abusing it, leaving their car on the charger for like way longer than beyond what they were charging. So we started implementing a fee. So with those type of charging units, we were able to transition them to a fee. You can choose $1 an hour, $2 an hour, whatever you want. And then the people have to swipe a credit card to pay for their charging. So you do have the ability with most of those charging stations to choose to offer the charging for free or to implement credit card swipe that they have to pay themselves.
Okay, thank you. Director Brander and then Director Paul.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to say my experience is I've traveled from here down to Portland in my EV, and the only time that I did not pay for the charging is if a business had set up one as a promotional way for bringing people in. So it was very common to pay for it on the way down. I had no problem doing that.
And how long does it take to charge a vehicle?
It depends on how much you want to charge. It depends on if it's a fast charging or if it's a second stage charger, or you can just plug it into an outlet and it can take 8 hours, but you don't want to sit around for that long. But a lot of people do that if they're at their house. They can just plug it into the outlet and all.
I get it. Thank you. Director Paul, I think you were there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I support this resolution, but I also recognize that staff are very heavily loaded, and recognize that it would be difficult and costly on Lasqueti to come up with solutions because of the off-grid nature. So while the motion is for rural areas, I'm hoping staff are hearing that I would understand, and I'm sure all of Lasqueti would understand if the effort to come up with this report focused on areas that had electric grid access, because that's a very different situation than on Lasqueti where the cost would be high. And I don't want staff to be spending a lot of time and effort on that because it would be a totally different pickle. And people have talked about it on Lasqueti Island. I think the community would just have to do something, because all of a sudden you're talking about solar panels and, do you have a generator, batteries, and all kinds of stuff. So I think, I'm happy if this is focused on areas that have grid access.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Thank you, Director Paul. I guess Savory Island would be in a similar situation, but as part of Area A. So you made a couple of comments, so I'm going to make a second comment quickly, and that is to say that on Czechzeta, 2 locations I would like to suggest are the old school, where people can go into the library for an hour while it's charging, or at the park, which people can use also while it's charging. So having thrown that in. Okay, Director Brander.
I just want to make a comment. You asked how long it takes to charge, and if you hooked it up to Director Fall's water wheel, I have absolutely no idea how long it would take.
400 watts.
Okay, well, I guess when there's a lot of water, that would go faster. So yeah, thank you. All right, is there further discussion on this motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. So now we are on to our final item in this part of the agenda, 8.2, the North Island 911 Directors and Shareholders Resolutions. And you have the resolution with an and in the middle. Director Brabazon, moved, seconded by Director Brander. Thank you. Discussion. I'm not seeing any hands. So all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Now we are at question period. Is there anyone in attendance who has questions of the committee? I'm not seeing anything or anyone or hearing anyone. So we will move on to the in-camera session. Who would like to read this motion?
I'll move that the committee move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district, or another position appointed by the regional district. C, labor relations or other employee relations. And N, the consideration of whether a committee meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Brabazon. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We are going in camera. looks like I will. Meeting 6 is so much better than the 7:40 because it takes me an hour after the very least.
We're back in session and
We're back in public session. There is no rise and report, so our committee of the whole meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
Done.